everybody, and welcome to our next session at Security by Live. For this big interview, I'm joined by Satia Rai, international security influencer, mentor, and all-round inclusion and belonging ambassador. Satia, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. Can we just begin by giving a brief overview of who you are?
Absolutely, Rebecca. Thank you for having me participate in this interview and giving me this platform, Rebecca. Well, look, I'm Satia Rai. I am head of belonging for Securitas UK. In my voluntary capacity, I'm also CEO of the International Professional Security Association. I'm also a member of the Security Skills Board. I'm chair of the Security EDI Forum. I'm a member of the International Security Expo Advisory Council, and I'm also a committee member of LGBT in Facilities Management, Rebecca. A bit of a mouthful, but everything, all of it, means something, and it means that we get to reach more people across our industry and beyond that.
Well, welcome and thank you again for introducing yourself and for joining us here. You've had quite a varied and fruitful career in the security sector, working in everything from fraud to inclusion and belonging. So how and why did your career transition into activism for equality, equity, diversity and inclusion? So what sparked this passion?
Well, look, Rebecca, it was, I've enjoyed a career spanning back nearly 3 decades now, and it started on the front line as a retail security officer. I won't talk about some of the businesses I was working in because a lot of them have gone into administration, sadly, and then it will just show my age and how old I actually am. But no, I enjoyed the career that I've had, and you're right. It's this EDI piece, this people piece has always been part of my DNA, and even when I was frontline officer. But it first came into sort of like into my world. This EDI piece came into my world when it was around the pandemic time, Rebecca, and because I'd be working on the road normally. But before COVID hit, a lot of times on the road and going up and down the country and so on, and that enabled me to spend more time, doing some of the things I wanted to. Sort of like I was curious about, like the Security Institute. So I joined the Security Institute. I became a member of their Inclusive Security Special Interest Group, and that was really that moment of what's next for me, Satia, because I'd worked the progression in my career started on the front line, middle management, and then into a leadership role. And I had the privilege of working at some of the largest security service providers, with some of the largest security service providers in the country. But that EDI piece, that people piece that I was really passionate about, came around that pandemic time, and and it was my own curiosity. What was the institute about? Where does and they had like their special interest groups, and that's where that journey of people started. And although I am passionate about people and inclusion, diversity, and belonging is a key part of what I do. I'd never actually, there was never no specific work or training or all the organizations I was part of. There was no real emphasis around that. And when it started, it was like, this was my purpose. This is what my next was. Because when you go through a career path and you're at that level, as in what's next, so it was almost like actually, what is next? And you're doing this leadership role and you're doing that well. You're working with clients, you're working with your people and so on. And then that people piece came through the that special interest group with the Security Institute, and that was it. That was my purpose, because even before then, Rebecca, I was not out as a gay woman, and being part of that special interest group, and it's and its mission statement, its teaching was all about being yourself in the workplace and being your authentic self. And I wasn't able to do that for all my career, most of my career. And once I was able to do that, and it was liberating. It was a sense of freedom that I've not felt before. And I thought there's got to be people like me out there that are experiencing that, or are not able to be their true selves in the workplace. Um and I wanted to share that that joy of, and that uh, the happiness and etc. that came with me being my authentic self in the workplace, and the impact that it had on me, family, the communities that I'm part of, outside the workplace. So, yeah, so comes from a real place of work, being passionate about people throughout my career, and and that that equality, diversity, inclusion, and belonging piece enables you to focus on people. But it was also a personal journey where, not being able to be my authentic self did not feel right for me, and I just did not want I have incredible nieces and nephews and from a family, but I did not want them to be growing up in a world where they would have to face barriers. And if I could do something about that, if I can impact that. And Rebecca, I said to myself that if I can change that for one person, when I started this 4 years ago, the people journey, the EDI journey, I thought that's great. I would have felt like I've achieved so much and everything, but actually the impact has been significant. And people from across the industry are now in a place where they can be their authentic selves in the workplace, and the joy that it brings by doing that, and also the impact it has on businesses is not really something you can truly measure, but there is a measure that can be measured, and I'll talk about that later on. But it comes from a personal space, and it comes from that workplace of, hang on, actually I've been working in the industry this long, but it's only in the last 4 years that I've been exposed to it. And even then, there was nothing for me to, where do we go now that I'm doing this people piece? What are the events? Where's the training? Where's the awareness? Who do I turn to? Who are the role models around this? There was none. There wasn't. And so this drive around this people piece, and then I thought it's got to be, we as an industry, it has to start somewhere. So that's where the sort of journey and sort of started, was around these are some of the reasons around it.
Well, very inspiring story, and I'm sure that the people that you have impacted, like you said, it's grown significantly in recent years. I'm sure they're all very proud of you and your personal journey, and also proud of what they achieved in themselves and their organizations. So I want to thank you as well. Not, I mean, obviously I can't thank you on behalf of the industry, but thank you for helping create a more inclusive environment. And
Thank you,
obviously,
Rebecca. Can I just mention, sorry, Rebecca, I should mention this, that also I have my partner's on the autistic spectrum, ADHD spectrum, and that had an impact on me, as in there was no real understanding of that. I was thinking, where do I go with this? How do I, and that person's, the impact that individual has in your life is quite significant. It's been quite incredible that actually that person, it's not about, that individual changing in any way, shape, or form. It's us as an industry. How do we behave? How do we include somebody from that type of background? So so that had a profound effect on me as well, as in, seeing some of the horrible challenges that she had to face, that I was, spurred uh, a desire in me, and almost like a grievance in me to say, no, this is not acceptable. This is not, it's not that individual, that it's us as a industry and a society that need to change our behaviours to support, accommodate, and help the various different people that make up our society.
Mm. And in your opinion, obviously, from your 30 years of career, but also just more significantly in the 4 years that you've kind of been pushing for ED&I, what is your opinion of how the response has been from the industry?
So when I approached and when I um, wanted to get a better understanding of this, I reached out to them across the industry, to my colleagues, and this was like some of the leading service providers, associations, etc. And the response was, I was pleasantly surprised, Rebecca. Nobody turned me away because I talked so passionately about what I wanted, what I was trying to achieve, and what I wanted to do. I just wanted to bring people together, and talk about how do we work together, uh, and try to change this people piece and so on. So when I approached the industry, and it was an incredible response. Nobody turned me away. Everybody was like, "This makes sense. We want to do more. We want to learn more." Um, and the individuals and the businesses I spoke with and the associations, they all had that same desire of wanting our industry to 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 grow and continue with its success. And in order to do that, we had to get that people piece right. Um I remember my first discussions, not really knowing anybody, Rebecca, but I think that because I was so passionate about wanting to see a different future and the change and some of and the reasons and benefits behind what I was doing. And all I did was share a bit of my journey. I was just being my authentic self, and the response I got was welcoming. Absolutely, yes, we want to be part of it. And some of the sort of people collaborations that I've led, most successful collaborations the industry's had, you know, everybody was on board with it. Most of the businesses I went and approached, Rebecca, they were on board with it. So, that's something that we should be extremely proud of, that when I did this, and when I did reach out to the industry, because I had to, because there was, there was not data, there was not information, there were no real specialists out there in terms of that people piece. And if they were very much like, this is our business, this is what we do in our people piece, and it's very much internalized and so on, and I understand that, that competitive piece and so on. But I I remove that. I don't remove it. I change that word to collaboration, because when you do get the people piece right, everybody sort of benefits around it. So the response was really positive, Rebecca. And then, like I said, there is so much more to be done. I'll always say that, but on the whole, and I really should, and I want to thank all them people that I did approach, because for some of them, they were like, they'd never met me before, they didn't know of me. So the fact that they didn't, and then they supported and were part of these people focused collaborations, which I'll sort of go into specifics later, was almost like a catalyst. That was the beginning of that positive change across the industry, Rebecca.
Defining moment. Well, that's really nice to hear as well. And obviously, over recent years, the industry has progressed, like you say, in leaps and bounds. But there's always room for improvement. And the same can be said in anything that we do in our daily lives, whether it's personal or professional. we always want to continuously improve. So what do you think are the biggest challenges that might be, preventing, I suppose, the security industry from being fully inclusive?
So I think, you know, the the training and edu the training and education I've had around that people piece has all been, again, started around that pandemic time. All sort of, I sort of steered that. I managed that myself. It wasn't something that was business or industry or, association driven. And I think a lack of training around that people piece around the equality, diversity, inclusion is a significant impact. I mean, so I did my level 2 in equality, diversity, inclusion, and and then around LGBT inclusion in the workplace, mental health, mentoring, and so on. There are, various people focused um, education programs, and like Securitas, I've just done my ILM level 2 for mentoring. It's fantastic, and there's a suite of people focused training programs here. So I think that the lack of training and education around this subject, and also that awareness around businesses. I mean, last year I spoke at an event and I used the terms EDI, and I've used that today with you. And when I spoke, I had people come to me after and said, what does it stand for? So I'll use it after I've described that, actually, equality, diversity, inclusion, and that awareness, around this subject, is something we need, as an industry, we are working on. And then I think that for our industry, and that getting that culture right across businesses, across the industry, it's got to be driven top down, Rebecca, and it has to be at C-suite buy-in. Like, we've got a fantastic leadership team at Securitas UK, and that's right from the top down. And our core values reflect it and so on. And also, I'm CEO of IPSA, and our exec team there, again, very passionate about making sure that that the frontline are looked up, irrelevant what their backgrounds are, is about opportunity and so on. So I think that buying at that level is really important, and we're not there yet. We're definitely not there yet. No. And even that training and education piece I talked about has to be to the C-suite level as well. You can't think that leaders across our business know enough about equality, diversity, inclusion, belonging. No, so that's when I talk about that, I mean, that means every layer within an organization and a business. And if I had another like woman of color, Sikh woman, and another role model from the LGBT community as I was growing up, I think that would have had an impact on me and the journey and other individuals. So I think the lack of role models, ambassadors around this subject, around throughout my journey, and around the career, has been a barrier. But look, that is changing now, and there are some incredible people out there that are driving positive change. And Rebecca, we've got to recognise that a lot of the work that's done around this piece is, I'm fortunate enough that I can, with Head of Belonging at Securitas, I live and breathe this. This is this people piece is what I do every day, and so the work that gets done in the EDI space from the ambassadors and the role models, a lot of it's in there. It's on top of the day job, Rebecca, you know. So, but the fact that, the industry is, you know, getting to a stage where we're recruiting EDI specific roles is huge. That's fantastic. We never had this. I never heard of any, like EDI managers or head of belonging or people and culture and so on. So the introduction of these roles across that industry now is quite significant, but the lack of it has been, I suppose, a bit of a could have been challenging in terms of getting that people piece right. And then I think that the collaborative piece, we as an industry are working together now better now than we have ever done in the 30 years that I've known. And we need to continue to build on that momentum. And, fantastic things have come about as a result of it. And, working together will impact the workforces. And when I mean collaborative, I don't mean just leading service providers. I mean the medium business, the smaller businesses, the tech piece, the CCTV installers. From right across the industry, and then the last but not least is that reward and recognition piece. We need to be doing more of that for our frontline community, because they're the heartbeat of our industry, and there's a real gap, and we should be doing more in terms of recognizing their brilliance and the brilliant work that they do in terms of keeping the public and communities safe every day, Rebecca.
And it's not an easy change that can happen overnight, because, like you said, instigating change at a C-suite level requires there to be people involved in that who are women, who are of color, who are of different sexual orientations, so on and so forth. Not just that, but to be able to recognize and instigate it throughout their workforce, throughout all the different layers that you mentioned. I think where we're seeing a really positive change is, or starting to anyway, is the recruitment, like you said, having people represent in organizations that can actually help with that recruitment and that training side, so that everybody is more aware. Everybody is trying to change their unconscious bias as well, because unfortunately that's what a lot of this is this lack of awareness, is because people, some people haven't grown up around an inclusive environment. It's not a nature and way they're thinking. So to be able to actively try and change that is great, and that will slowly just start to snowball. And that's where, and I feel like we're on the cusp of that, so we're just waiting for it just to we've got these younger generations coming in now who are already a lot more inclusive just in the nature of their generation. So that change should start kind of, going up the ranks, so to speak. So it's an exciting time. But yeah, like you said, still a lot to do, but we have to be positive about how far we've come. And just hovering on that for a second as well, it's very easy to focus on women in security, because that's what feels like has had the most publicity over recent years. Obviously, we've had some great strides in that area, with the Lead Her events, for example. And it's the most relatable too, because that's the biggest proportion of the industry from a minority background. But as somebody obviously who's I'm happily married to a woman, for example, and you mentioned your partner earlier, I would be really interested to get your take on how the barriers differ potentially for people who might be of a different orientation, gender, skin color, physical and mental abilities, so on and so forth.
So, Rebecca, I don't know if thank you for sharing that first with me. I was not aware of that. Thank you for sharing that in this space. So I don't know if you've heard the terminology of intersectionality. So I'm trying to, in its simplest form, is that, as a woman, when I started in this industry, I was, who I reported to, my team, my peers, etc. They were all from the same background. They were all men. And then and then when you talk about me being a Sikh woman, then that adds another layer to some of the challenges that I may have experienced in the workplace, and then add the fact that I'm a woman from the LGBT community. That adds in another layer of potential discrimination, harm, however you want, to me. And I had all three at one time this year. And I can assure you it is the most horrific situation to be in. So having an understanding that, we have people from different backgrounds and so on, and then actually understanding that it'd be a different challenge for me as a woman, and then as a Sikh woman, and then also, being part of the LGBT community. Having that understanding is so important, because then you can have them conversations, then you can talk about, or have an awareness around, what could impact your workforce, and making sure that you create, safe spaces in terms of that. Look, these are the challenges that our workforce could experience because they are a woman and they have a disability and they're part of, this community. So it is, like I said, it is important, because the only way I can sort of talk about this is when I personalize this, is that it was a challenge. When I experienced some tough times in the workplace around inappropriate behavior, the person that was responsible for the inappropriate behavior was part of the demographic of the person that I was going to then go to and talk to, and it hindered that. I didn't feel comfortable or confident enough to be able to share that experience and think that something was going to get done about it. I just didn't. So these things they impact people, they impact workforces, and when it happens, and it's equally important that we call that out. So when I experienced genocide, I spoke to the Met Police and so on, and I was quite vocal about it. I spoke to my colleagues and etc. And so my professional colleagues and so on. So it's important that when it does happen, it gets called out, and it's important that people and businesses have appropriate measures in place to protect their people when something like this does happen. Ideally, and the best scenario is that it's around that education piece and that training piece, and that being proactive about this and getting it right. And when a person comes into the business, that look, we're a people-centric business, and look at all these people-specific training programs. There is you don't leave any scope or room for that type of behavior to fester. Unfortunately, we know that actually, even when training and etc. is provided there, but that's the minority that that level of bias, discrimination will exist, and it's important that we root that out, and we have we have surveys in place, or we have confidential helplines that people could go to express their concerns, and where they can safely raise an issue or an incident if they are subjected to it, unfortunately. So yeah, these are all real, and and I don't know about you, Rebecca, but when I was it's a career where we never ever talked about violence against women and girls. It just was not a subject. And now we've got a women's group at Securitas, and we have like nearly 900 women as part of this group, and is fantastic. And when we talked about this subject, and honestly, when once people women start to share their stories at this group, honestly, it was just, yeah, it was powerful, Rebecca, because one woman did it, and then another, and it sort of created a space where people wanted to talk about their experiences in the workplace, and and you know, having network groups in the workplace are a great way to do that, but also again that education, and it wasn't, we've got there's a men's group as well, and that men's group is all about also engaging the men in that industry that actually this type of behavior is not acceptable, and being our allies and supporting this cause around that. So yeah, actually having men be part of the progress and um, changes is absolutely key.
No, definitely. And I think you're right. Having a safe place is not just for individuals, but as a collective, um, with people that you can relate to. That is so important because that's where you feel confident and comfortable, and supported. And just to hover as well on intersectionality, there's an incredibly good analogy, and I've mentioned this before in a similar style interview, so I won't go too much into depth with it. But it's essentially a 100-meter sprint, and everybody starts on the baseline, and the referee, let's say, says take a step forward if you are from a middle class background, take a step back if you wear glasses, take a step back if parents are divorced, take a step forward if you're white in skin color, for example, so on and so forth. So eventually everybody is standing at completely different points of the 100-meter sprint, and then the race starts, and you have some people that are 2 meters away from the finish line, others that are 150 meters from the finish line. And it's a very good analogy of how people are made up of all these intersecting parts of privilege and oppression. And so it's important to recognize that. And on the subject of that, obviously, intersectionality is a fairly new term, as is equity. And obviously, ED&I is as it's most commonly referred to, is expanding to include more of those kind of acronyms. So I mean, you've touched on this, just now, but why do you think we need these categories more so, than ever?
I think that, ideally, once this becomes the norm, Rebecca, this is the key. Is once, respecting and having workplace cultures where this is all the norm, these phrases will still have a significance, but they won't be as, that importance will be less significant, I think. So it's absolutely key to have an understanding of, the equity pieces about, equal spaces, and for being fair to everybody, irrelevant of what their background is. And then, but then the equity piece is about making sure it is about that actually, not only do we know people are different, but we're going to support and guide them because we have an understanding of what it's like to have a disability in the workplace, or that you are from a different race, and etc. and so on, so inclusive language is so important, Rebecca. I mean, imagine you're in the workplace and you see D&I champions. We work with D&I champion badges, a pride lanyard. You have a look at, we have a Black History Month event. Imagine coming into the workplace and you see this and you think, wow, this is fantastic. That's your first impression of a business. You'd be like, that's incredible, because, that's reflective of who I am. And the amount of times when I go out and, that networking piece, Rebecca, the amount of times I hear is that it's amazing to finally see somebody from this community or that community, and so that's powerful to our people. That means something to our people. It really does mean that, look, there's somebody from that, looks like us. It's great, we want to now come out and be part of these events and network, and we want to do something different in our business and so on. So inclusive language is it's got to be part of that piece around ED&I and belonging. And for me, the belonging piece is the most important, because that's that culture where you've normalized, where right from the top down, you have workplace environments that are safe spaces for everybody, and where everybody can just be their or authentic self. But Rebecca saying that and then actually doing it is different. And it takes a lot of work and determination, and it's not something that businesses can achieve, or organizations can achieve overnight. This is a journey. This is a roadmap of years of hard work around that people piece, and that comes through engagement, engagement with our people at every level. So yeah, and I personally, I hate acronyms. I like, because, but we use them, and I've used them today, but they can be off-putting sometimes. But I think that as long as we're clear when we use them and we have an understanding of our audience, then it's important.
And for anybody watching who might be wanting to take something away from this and improve the diversity in their organization and improve their belonging in their organization, what advice would you give them to where they would start?
I think I've sort of said, look, start around that training piece, that education piece, and you can that can start by appointing somebody in a position, or it could be that somebody's already in a people sort of focused business, and they can look at that equality, diversity and inclusion piece as well under the remit that they're already working in. So I think that having a specialist or similar, and then filtering that sort of training in the business. So, and I'm not just saying that equality, diversity, that's a tick. No, I'm talking about all people focused of training programs. Include them in your business training programs. That's key. And I'm not saying, look, you go out and recruit. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there's scope within your business that people can focus and look at that and have it on the agenda. Talk about people. Talk about ED&I. At C-suite level, that focus. Talk about the benefits of it, and talk about the stories. Talk about the journeys of your people. Sharing your stories. That honestly, they are the most powerful. It's the most powerful way we can connect with people and our audience and etc. And then I think that we've seen the power of network groups at Securitas. Absolutely, we've got 8 and counting. We've got neurodiverse. We've got Pride at Securitas. We've got women. In Securitas. We've got conscious care. We've got and etc. There's the assimilation group and so on. So these are all fantastic safe spaces for people to go and be their authentic selves and engage. And we have various network events throughout the year. So having these network groups is a great place to start. And then I think that collaborative piece is key. So if that's something that you're businesses aspiring to work towards, and you want to introduce that into your business, look at the various businesses, and there's other businesses that are doing it well, and then look at the international, IPSA, and the EDI forum. There are various places now you can refer to and say that, what's your thoughts, and how can you help be part of that change? What can we do to be a more inclusive employer? And there are specific accreditations around out there as well, that are sort of people focused. We've just at Securitas, you've got the violence against women and girls accreditation. There's the neurodiverse. There's disability employers. There are various industry. There are various accreditations that around people that the businesses can introduce into the business to get that people piece right.
And lastly, Satia, could you tell us about one standout moment in your career that really made you stop and think, or that you wish you had handled maybe slightly differently? I know it's a little difficult question.
All right. So look, this is the optimism. This is me being there's only way I know is that positive piece in my work. I'm an optimist, and that feeling I got when I did in the first ever International Women's Day event, when we led that, and as an industry we came together at March this year. I was like, wow, this is the power of collaboration. You had the regulator was involved, all the leading associations and leading like service providers, and we had frontline officers speaking at the event. And so that was I sat back and I thought to myself, wow, this is impactful. Look at the amount of people that have turned out and turned up for this, and the response and the feedback was absolutely I was like, wow, it's just, all these people had come together, and we as an industry made that happen. And then the other collaboration was the first, I think that was our very first ever industry EDI collaboration with Pride last year, Rebecca. And
I've heard about this.
That was really the catalyst. I mean, it was post-pandemic, and it was the biggest pride that had ever taken place, 1.8 million people in London, and we were part of that parade. It wasn't, it was about pride and the LGBT community, but however, it was about people. It was about us as an industry coming together to celebrate a community, and our security professionals from a specific community, and it could have been any community, and we came together to celebrate them. So, and that was a coming together of the industry that for me, that was the catalyst of change. Look, we've done this together. What's next, Satia? It's almost like what do we do next? And then we had International Women's Day, and that's when I thought, and it wasn't just the security, the industry piece. It was almost like this is just about society. This is everything. This encompasses. You get the people piece right for your people, the impact it has on them, their lives, the communities that they are all part of, and they go back to, and their families. We can, when I say that, the changing lives bit, I would even add saving lives. When you get the people piece right, you'll be you impact, and you could be saving lives with the things that you do around people, Rebecca. So they were the moments when the industry came together, and I was like, I was just like, wow. I was thankful. I was grateful for everybody that's been involved in these collaborations, and now we are going to be part of them every year. This is something that it's not going to stop after a year. This is something that's going to continue year on year. and get bigger and bigger every year. So they were the moments, and I thought, when we come together, look at what we have done and achieved. We were at the biggest inclusive event this country's ever seen. We were part of that.
Yeah. No, amazing. Well, Satia, thank you so much for sharing your journey with me, and with all of us. We appreciate absolutely everything that you've done and what you're continuing to do day in, day out. And I can safely say that I think we're all excited to see what's next. So I suppose watch this space. Thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you for having me in this space, Rebecca. I always get nervous speaking because I'm not, like it's almost like out of my comfort zone, but I've got to do it. If it means that I have to reach people and it makes an impact, then it's a good thing, Rebecca.
Always a pleasure to have you. Thank you.